Well, the news keeps rolling if you are a Nintendo fan, because as we suspected, there may be some big nuggets of information coming out of Nintendo's latest financial briefing that, it's kind of a two-part scenario. This is literally the third video on the channel in it within the last 24 to 48 hours range, and that's because there's a lot of new stuff coming out. There was the initial drop of the document that Nintendo kind of outlined all of their new growth points and the software sales and all that good stuff, and then we also had the reconfirmation that Nintendo Switch 2 will still be revealed within this fiscal year. Nothing is changing with those plans. That's from Furukawa's own mouth. Then we had the part 2, which is kind of the financial call, where they have a Q&A with investors, and they also have a different document that they go over to present to investors, and that's actually what we're going to be walking through today. And while we're still waiting on a lot of the Q&A transcriptions and headlines and things like that at the time of filming, before we'd probably have to make a separate video on exactly what's said in some of those deep dive conversations, I do actually want to highlight some of the more detailed information that came out from Nintendo's latest presentation document surrounding this financial briefing, because there's some good, more in-depth explanation from Nintendo in terms of just how much they are valuing this current user base of Switch owners that they've built up over the Switch console generation, and they are making it very clear that top priority is maintaining a relationship with all of these over 27 plus million active users that are currently playing the Switch today. I mean, we're at 146 million consoles sold, but the active user base is up to 127 million right now. They're making that very clear that that is their priority, to basically preserve these people's libraries, with the confirmation of a feature like backwards compatibility that we now know to expect. Also, Nintendo Switch Online rolling forward, and there's just a lot of kind of interesting insight into Nintendo's mindset with where they're at and where they're going forward with their broader business plan in 2024, 2025, and beyond. So we're going to dive through the document in detail. Before we get on the same page with all of that, make sure you like, subscribe, and turn on your bell notification to join Sunbro Nation if you're new here. And I want to first kick it off by hopping right over to the document and walking through that together. All right, so we're going to start off at the top here, but there's actually a lot of information right out of the gate that we did cover in a prior video. These are all linked to my channels. The most recent videos from this one, the last two kind of go over some of this stuff, so we're not going to rehash all of the units sold. Essentially 146 million is what we're at for the current Switch family of systems, and then 1.3 billion units of software, which awesome news is that Nintendo's rolling that forward. We know backwards compatibility is officially confirmed, and I can't quite put into words just how happy I am to see that personally. But annual users playing the Nintendo Switch, this is a big number, because while there is definitely some double dip that happens over the course of time, you have collectors like myself that go out there and pick up a Tears of the Kingdom OLED Switch, even though you already have an OLED, and that was after you bought the original Switch. Like, there's definitely people who have bought 2, 3, even 4 or 5 Switches for their household over the course of the years that this has been out there. But you have to look at the total annual player count, which is 127 million. That is a massive number from Nintendo that are all actively playing in the Switch ecosystem right now. So anywhere from children to seniors are playing and literally, continuing to build out Nintendo's user base here. And unlike years past where we've seen the Wii and kind of a more casual audience, it does seem to be that while there is some casual players on the Switch, no doubt, they kind of have a core audience that continues to buy their big pieces of software. And of course, they highlight here all of the things we kind of already know about what they're doing to kind of move the needle during the holiday period, essentially, because you have Echoes of Wisdom, Jamboree, Super Mario Party game, obviously going to be probably the biggest seller, and then Mario and Luigi Brothership. We'll have to see how that does from a sales perspective. And you have some traditional bundles, Mario Wonder, Mario Kart 8 Deluxe, which I believe we're only getting 8 Deluxe here in the US, but Mario Wonder is like the European bundle. I don't know why we don't have the option of choosing between those two. I think we should everywhere in the world. And then of course your Hyrule Edition Switch Lite, but that's how Nintendo's trying to continue to move the needle forward in terms of unit sales, as they had to adjust their forecast down to 12.5 million from 13.5 million, and it may get adjusted down lower than that again if it's not as successful of a holiday sales season as they want it to be. But then you have some highlighted partner titles releasing from September onward. So to kind of close out that holiday season, Sonic X Shadow Generations, I'm currently enjoying right now. Still plays very well on the Nintendo Switch in my experience too. I know it's not as visually beautiful as the other versions, but Side note, it runs good enough for me. I would love to see 60 FPS, but hey, I'm going to be able to play that on Switch too, and we still don't know if there's going to be some kind of software enhancement that may come along with some of these games, where we have a better running version of them on the next gen console. Let's hope we see that. Lego Horizon Adventures, which is kind of crazy, first party Sony published title, but literally you'll be able to play it on the Switch. Dragon Quest HD 2D remake, that's going to be a big deal. So lots of different games that are coming out. And then of course we have kind of their 2025, and I do want to highlight just how many of these are partner games that Nintendo themselves are highlighting, because we've seen this and it's in upcoming slides, but they are making moves to essentially have multiple other companies actually go ahead and create third-party games from them, in addition to just having them actually port over some old games. That is a big part of Nintendo's strategy going forward here. So, that's what we know about 2025 so far. There's some new Nintendo Direct rumors for February. I think we're going to see one in February, but we may or may not talk about that in a separate video. And of course, you have the current state of Nintendo Switch. Nintendo Switch is being played by over 100 million people worldwide. A steady stream of new titles is planned for the holiday season and upcoming year. And that is one thing to highlight here as well. Nintendo is not giving up on the Switch, even though they are transitioning to their next gen hardware. We will learn about their next gen hardware. They will promote titles for it, but they are largely still going to have some content roadmap for their massively successful Switch install base, because you don't just walk away from 146 million million Switches and 127 million active players annually. So earnings since the launch of the Nintendo Switch, they kind of have their net sales and their operating profit here. And you just see how, right out of the gate from fiscal year 2017, just the overall huge increase in essentially their operating profit is what you care about at the end of the day as a business. But even net sales and everything that they've done, as far as the structure of their business, they're more successful now in the Switch generation than they ever have been in years past. And they kind of continue, they really drive home the point, and this is where I think you can look forward into Nintendo's future a little bit, about how they merged two platforms that were previously separated into home consoles and handheld systems. So this, to me, when they talk about just how successful the 3DS was, we know the Wii U was essentially a commercial failure from a sales perspective, but you look at what they're really, the picture they're painting you here, and it's that they are very proud of what they did by merging their two separate platforms into one and having that hybrid system. And I'd be willing to bet that until that does not make sense in gaming anymore, like streaming is the primary way that people start to play games because latency's been completely eliminated, things like that. I almost think until we get to that point in time, and that's probably years and years off, Nintendo may continue to stay in this hybrid lane. I mean, they really drive it home and communicate just how this is the winning formula for them within that document. And I really do think that this is the vision for them for the future of their consoles. So probably past the Switch 2 and whatever they end up calling it, we could see multiple console generations from Nintendo that have this hybrid form factor in mind at the end of the day. Then they go on to emphasize like the multiple consumer touch points, because of course they're, now between Nintendo Switch Online, the eShop, and that mix of the digital and physical availability on software, they're supporting both because they want as many options for gamers at the end of the day to be able to purchase. This part scares me a little bit, but it is again another emphasis on consumer touch points. I'm not a big fan of having games launch light on content and then get their updates later. Nintendo has done this specifically with sports titles primarily. Now they highlight Metroid Dread, which that got an easy mode added in and a boss rush mode. That was already a content complete game, so no complaints with that whatsoever. But they do have this kind of new strategy where they're going to essentially put out a game that may arguably be lighter than you want it to be on content, and then they slowly update it and kind of make it whole over the course of a software roadmap of updates. I fall off on stuff like that. I don't always go back and check out the new updates. I hope that that's not like a staple point of their strategy going forward, but it probably helps with user engagement for those titles over the course of a long time. So maybe Nintendo's seeing it as successful, but they continue to talk about, paid DLC, paid add-on content, whether it be a part of the expansion pack, or whether it be something that is totally separately paid for. They're doing both essentially. I mean, because you always have the option to purchase DLC separate from the expansion pack. And then you have like changing gameplay through online. Obviously, Nintendo's going more into online than they've ever done before. And to emphasize that, if you ever wanted to know how big of a piece of the business this is for Nintendo, over a 34 million membership count for Nintendo Switch Online. And obviously we don't really know the breakdown of the expansion pack members versus just the base tier members, but still nonetheless, I mean, them highlighting that, yeah, they're very proud of that. Nintendo Music, another consumer touch point. They're literally on your smartphone now. They're on your home console. You know, there's obviously different ways that you can interact with them directly on a desktop. Like, they're just trying to paint the picture that they are in the pockets of consumers almost at all times. And then, you know, you have some digital sales trends and things. I am going to skip forward to kind of like a couple slides that I want to talk about because obviously, you know, there is a few different things, and this is actually one of the points because I don't know exactly what page it's on. We may make a quick jump cut at some point, but strengthening relationships with software publishers. This is something I think we're really going to see go to another level in terms of the Switch 2, because, well, we already know certain companies are going to do it on their own regardless. As soon as Square Enix and Microsoft have, you know, essentially powerful enough hardware, you better believe that every major game that they want the opportunity to sell across a broader user base than they can today will come to consoles like Nintendo, and Nintendo's going out of their way to actually try to essentially highlight that they are doing very good things for their partners. Like, look at how successful these third-party ports are to our console, and this is on the Switch, which is very limited from a hardware perspective. For a lot of these games, you talk about Hogwarts Legacy, delayed 6 months, and it still isn't quite the full open world experience. It doesn't quite connect the same in the world the way it does on other consoles. So, you know, Nintendo really highlighting essentially that they're trying to do everything they can to attract partners, and that's good for us at the end of the day, all the consumers and players. So they go through some more earning stuff towards the future growth, expanding number of people who have access to Nintendo IP, kind of broader footprint type of deal. Then you have sales volumes for Mario related titles. This is specifically Mario, but just look at the numbers on screen. Like, I mean, is there any question that Mario is like more successful than he's ever been in the Nintendo Switch's life cycle? And then this is kind of, you know, doubling down on that Switch effect. You know, 53 million units between the two Zelda entries on the console, 26 million for Splatoon, 35 for a singular Smash Bros release on the console, and 46 for Animal Crossing. I mean, astronomical numbers. I thought this hit 100 million, but nonetheless, 1 million off, and it'll get there before the end of the Switch's life cycle. The whole Pokemon franchise, and think about all these games that are now going to be playable on Nintendo's next-gen console. Really exciting stuff. 99 million units. We haven't even seen the release of Legend ZA yet, so fastly approaching 100 million units for the Pokemon franchise. Again, the Switch effect here. Look at different franchises that sell, you know, 7.86 million for Pikmin compared to, you know, Nintendo or the 3DS / Wii U titles, 1.78 million, you know, to 7.8. Even a series like Metroid, 4.99 million on the Switch, and then you have 0.98 million units during that 3DS, I guess is really what they're referring to there, because we didn't have any Metroid on the Wii U. But you get the idea. All of these different franchises, Kirby, Xenoblade Chronicles, way more successful than they've ever been in the current Switch's generation, which is just a really cool thing to see. So then you have, you know, all of the different, I don't know exactly what they're going over in this particular slide, just basically like a broad, you know, selection of different IP, and how they utilize that between mobile, theme park, merchandise. Nintendo is expanding now in a different, you know, direction than they ever have before. You talk about their movie roadmap, 2026 for the next Mario movie, 2020X, so we don't know what it is, maybe 2028, I mean 2027, we don't know. The next Legend of Zelda movie, or the first Legend of Zelda movie in terms of Nintendo doing it in-house in a live action, like that's going to be massive. This is another big revenue stream for Nintendo. You mix that in with the theme parks, the mobile apps of the world, you know, even opening up new store locations as they're highlighting, the museum. You know, this is a really cool deep dive and look into Nintendo's business, and I think that that's really cool. And then again, they really start to tie everything home to Nintendo account, strengthen connections with each consumer to build a long-term relationship. That's what they are interested in doing. And this also directly goes over to the message, 366 million Nintendo accounts out there. This goes over to the message of backwards compatibility. And this is where we will spend just a little bit of time to kind of close out this video and discussion here. This is the big pieces of news and information, but there's some additional information that we did not get from just Furukawa's own statement. So Nintendo Switch software will also be playable on the successor to Nintendo Switch. We know this. Furthermore, Nintendo Switch software will also be playable on, well, that's literally the same bullet point we just read. In addition to being able to play Nintendo Switch software they currently own, consumers will be able to choose their next purchase from a broad selection of titles released for Nintendo Switch. Again, implying that they're not just going to cut off the support of software for the Switch family of systems we have today. Further information about the successor to Nintendo Switch, including its compatibility with Nintendo Switch I explained today, will be announced at a later date. They're going to go into depth about how backwards compatibility works at a later date. I'm assuming that is exactly when we are going to learn things like what if anything does Nintendo do in terms of upgrading frame rates, upgrading resolution when it's supported? Do we have to get a full remaster edition of select games like Breath of the Wild is rumored to be, or is there some built-in ones that games that we have today that just kind of chug along on the Switch or don't run as good as we want them to will actually have some baked-in enhancement for the next-gen hardware? And maybe it's just a simple software update that has to be plugged in, hitting the button to unlock the frame rate or whatever Nintendo needs to do on the back end. Will we see them do that? That's a big question I still have, but I do believe that that maybe is part of what we're going to see them more or less explain when it comes to their backwards compatibility feature. So strengthening development resources, Nintendo Cube, 1UP Studio, Mario Club, Retro Studios, Monolith Soft, IQ, all of the research and development teams. They're really just showing essentially, like, here is a list of our research and development subsidiaries. Since 2021, we have added Next Level Games, SRD, and Shiver in game development, Nintendo Pictures and visual content for non-game entertainment, and Nintendo Systems as part of our effort to maintain and expand relationships with our consumers. They have a lot of things going on in-house that can tackle, research and development for different things, and also just third-party ports. Even we're hearing reports of that they're going to be doing things like that. So lots of different really cool initiatives from Nintendo. They seem to have the right outlook and just not ever wanting to go back to that hitting the reset button, essentially, like we've seen them do in the past. We've seen them essentially have very successful console generations and just not be able to capitalize on that same user base as they transition to next-gen hardware. That seems to be not an issue, at least in the current mindset state that Nintendo is in right now. And I'm hopeful we see them follow this through all the way to the launch of their next-gen console and even far past this, because I think they want that consistent, reliable 100+ million user base that they can carry forward with them generation to generation between the Switch 2, mobile, all of the online infrastructure built out, even music apps on your phone. Like, they want to be everywhere, which is very exciting and cool for us end users at the end of the day. So let me know in the comments down below if you're excited for some of the future business plans from Nintendo and the additional details of backwards compatibility, maybe even seeing things like enhanced games, somewhere down the line whenever they unveil the feature in more detail. And do you think the message for Nintendo account and rolling it forward and all of their software forward is the right move here for Nintendo? Is there anything you disagree with in their strategy? And when do you ultimately think, if you had to make a final guess on when we'll see the successor to Nintendo Switch finally revealed to us in form of a trailer with our eyes actually seeing what this console is? Let me know that in the comments down below. So make sure you share all your thoughts and feelings in the comments down below before you leave, regardless if we agree or disagree. Also, make sure you like, subscribe, turn your notification bell. And with that, I've been Sunbro, you've been Nation. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next video.